Look at this cripple trying to play soldier. The words hit Captain Elena Reyes like a bullet to the chest. 8 Delta Force operators surrounded her in the lobby of Joint Special Operations Command, their laughter echoing off marble walls as she struggled to balance on her crutches. Master Sergeant Derek Walsh stepped forward, his eyes filled with pure contempt. My brother died because of you, and now you can't even walk without help. Elena's hands trembled on the aluminum handles. She had survived an IED that killed 3 of her soldiers. But nothing had prepared her for this. They had no idea a 3-star general was watching from the balcony above. If you want to see how Elena's story unfolds, subscribe to our channel and follow her journey to the very end. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The automatic doors slid open, and Captain Elena Reyes felt the cold November air of Fort Bragg cut through her dress uniform like a blade. She paused at the threshold, her hands gripping the rubber handles of her crutches so tight, her knuckles went white. 3 months. It had been 3 months since she could walk without these aluminum extensions of her broken body. 3 months since an IED in Syria had shattered her left leg and killed 3 members of her reconnaissance team. 3 months since she had been a real soldier. Elena took a breath and swung herself forward. The lobby of JSOC headquarters stretched before her like a gauntlet. 50 feet of polished marble floor. 50 feet of exposed vulnerability. She could do this. She had done harder things. The security desk was staffed by an older man, late 50s, with a chest full of ribbons that told Elena he had seen his share of combat. His name tag read CSM Rhett Harrison. He looked up from his computer, and his eyes tracked her approach without judgment. Good morning, ma'am. ID, please. Elena fumbled with her identification card, trying to balance on her crutches while reaching for her pocket. The simple motion that once took no thought at all now required concentration and coordination. Harrison reached over the counter. May I? Thank you. Elena handed him the card, grateful for the small kindness. He swiped it and handed it back. Intelligence Analysis Division, basement level, elevators straight ahead. I appreciate it. Harrison's expression softened. Welcome to JSOC, Captain. Good luck down there. Something in his tone made Elena pause. Is there something I should know? Before Harrison could answer, a burst of laughter erupted from the hallway to her right. Elena's stomach dropped. A group of 8 men rounded the corner, their bodies still radiating heat from morning physical training. Delta Force operators. She recognized the quiet confidence in their movements, the way they owned every inch of space they occupied. She had trained with men like these. She had led men like these. Now she was nothing to them. The group's conversation died the moment they spotted her. Silence stretched across the lobby like a held breath. 8 pairs of eyes tracked her crutches, her uneven stance the way she favored her right leg. Elena kept her chin up and started toward the elevator. Well, well, well. The voice came from the center of the group. A tall man with shoulders like a linebacker stepped forward, his arms crossed over his chest. His name tape read, Walsh. Elena's blood froze. Derek Walsh. Master Sergeant Derek Walsh. She knew that name. She knew that face, though she had never met him personally. His brother had been on her team in Syria. His brother had died in her arms. Captain Elena Reyes. Walsh spoke her name like a curse. The famous failure herself. I didn't think they'd actually let you back on base. Elena stopped walking. Her training told her to ignore him, to keep moving, to maintain military bearing. But something in his voice, the raw hatred beneath the mockery, made her turn. Master Sergeant Walsh, I didn't realize you were stationed here. Yeah, I bet you didn't. Walsh moved closer, his teammates forming a loose semicircle behind him. Probably hoped you'd never have to face anyone from Danny's unit. Anyone who actually knew what happened over there. The mention of his brother's name hit Elena like a physical blow. Daniel Walsh. Sergeant First Class Daniel Walsh. 28 years old. 2 kids back home in Texas. He had been the best explosive ordnance technician she had ever worked with. He had also been the one who pushed her out of the way when the second IED detonated. "Derek, that's Master Sergeant Walsh to you." His voice dropped cold and lethal. "You don't get to call me by my first name. You don't get to pretend we're friends. You got my brother killed." The accusation hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Elena's throat tightened. "That's not what happened." "Really?" Walsh laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Then tell me what did happen, Captain. Tell me how a decorated ranger leads her team straight into an ambush. Tell me how 3 of the best soldiers I've ever known came home in boxes while you came home on crutches." "The intelligence was compromised. We didn't know." "You didn't know." Walsh stepped closer, close enough that Elena could smell the sweat from his workout. "You were the team leader. It was your job to know. It was your job to keep them alive." Elena's hands trembled on her crutches. Every word he spoke echoed the accusations she had made against herself in the dark hours of the night. The guilt she carried was a weight heavier than any combat load. "Your brother was a hero," she said quietly. "He saved my life." "Yeah, he did." Walsh's voice cracked for just a moment before hardening again. "And look what that got him. A folded flag and a headstone in Arlington. Meanwhile, you're still breathing, still wearing the uniform, still pretending you belong here." One of the other operators, a younger man with a shaved head, shifted uncomfortably. "Walsh, maybe we should—" "Shut up, Martinez." Walsh didn't take his eyes off Elena. "I want her to understand something. I want her to know exactly what everyone on this base thinks when they see her hobbling around on those crutches." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire lobby. "You're a reminder of failure, Captain. Every time someone sees you, they think about the soldiers who didn't make it home. They think about what happens when leadership breaks down. They think about how one person's mistakes can cost lives." Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Not her composure, she was too well trained for that. But something deeper. Some fragile hope that she might still find a place in this world. "I've read your file," Walsh continued louder, now playing to his audience. "Silver Star, Bronze Star, commendations out the ass. But you know what all those ribbons mean now." He paused, letting the silence build. "Nothing. They don't mean a damn thing. Because at the end of the day, when it mattered most, you couldn't protect your people. And now you can't even walk across a room without assistance." Another operator, older, with a thick beard, snorted with laughter. "Maybe they should create a new unit for her. Call it the Limp Force instead of Delta Force." The joke triggered more laughter from several team members. Walsh grinned, feeding off their response. Elena stood frozen, her face burning with humiliation. She had survived enemy fire in 3 countries. She had stared down insurgent commanders during interrogations. She had earned the respect of generals and the fear of enemies. But this public mockery from her own countrymen cut deeper than any bullet. Harrison, the security guard, stood up from his desk. "That's enough, Master Sergeant. This is a professional environment." Walsh turned his expression dangerous. "Stay out of this, old man. This is between soldiers." "I am a soldier." Harrison's voice was steel. 30 years in special forces before you were born. And what I'm seeing right now isn't soldier behavior. It's bullying. It's disgraceful." For a moment, tension crackled between the 2 men. Then Walsh laughed and stepped back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Fine, whatever." He looked at Elena one last time, his eyes filled with contempt. "Enjoy your desk duty, Captain. Try not to hurt yourself on the way to the basement." He gestured to his team, and they moved past her toward the gym facilities. Their laughter echoed off the marble walls, growing fainter, but no less cutting. Elena stood motionless until they disappeared around the corner. Then slowly she resumed her journey toward the elevator. Harrison watched her go, his expression troubled. When the elevator doors closed behind her, he picked up his phone and dialed a number from memory. "Sir, this is Harrison at the main desk. We have a situation you need to know about." The elevator climbed slowly each floor, marked by a soft chime that felt like a countdown to Elena's new life. When the doors opened on the basement level, she found herself staring at a long, windowless corridor lit by harsh fluorescent lights. Welcome to purgatory, she thought. Her new supervisor was waiting for her at the end of the hall. Major Stephen Crawford was a thin man with a receding hairline and the perpetually annoyed expression of someone who believed himself destined for greater things. "Captain Reyes, you're late." Elena checked her watch. "I was told to report at 0800. It's 0757. "And yet it took you," Crawford made a show of looking at her crutches, "considerably longer to get here than it should have. In the future, I suggest leaving earlier to accommodate your limitations." The dismissal in his voice was unmistakable. Elena bit back the response that rose to her lips. "Understood, sir." Crawford turned and walked briskly down the corridor, not bothering to slow his pace for her. Elena followed as quickly as she could, her crutches clicking an uneven rhythm against the tile floor. "Your office is down here," Crawford said over his shoulder. "Storage room B7. We've cleared out most of the equipment to make space for a desk." A storage room. They were putting a decorated combat veteran in a storage room. Elena said nothing. Crawford stopped at a door that still bore the faded label, Supplies, and pushed it open. Inside was a metal desk, a folding chair, an ancient computer, and walls lined with shelves that still held miscellaneous office supplies. "This is temporary," Crawford said, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "Until your medical retirement is processed." "Sir, I haven't submitted for medical retirement." Crawford raised an eyebrow. "The paperwork is already in progress. Given your condition, it's the logical conclusion. You can't exactly go back to operational status." "I can still serve. My mind isn't injured." "Your mind isn't the issue, Captain." Crawford's patience was clearly wearing thin. "The issue is that this division supports special operations teams. Teams that need officers who can keep up, who can deploy if necessary, who can walk without crutches." Crawford stiffened at the edge in her voice. "Who can perform all aspects of their duties. This isn't personal, Captain. It's practical." Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to list every mission she had led, every commendation she had earned, every life she had saved through her intelligence analysis. But she recognized the look in Crawford's eyes. He had already decided what she was worth. Nothing. "There's a stack of files on your desk," Crawford continued. "Routine analysis. Nothing critical. Just something to keep you busy until the paperwork goes through." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Captain, you'll be providing intelligence support for Delta teams, including Master Sergeant Walsh's unit." Elena's stomach dropped. "Sir, is there a problem?" A dozen problems raced through her mind. But she was a soldier. She didn't get to choose her assignments. "No, sir. No problem." Crawford nodded and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Elena alone in her storage room office with nothing but fluorescent lights and the ghosts of her failure. She lowered herself into the folding chair, set her crutches against the wall, and stared at the stack of files on her desk. routine analysis, busy work, a holding pattern until they could push her out the door. This wasn't what she had fought for. This wasn't what Danny Walsh had died for. Elena opened the first file and began to read. Somewhere above her in the world of real soldiers, operations were being planned and missions were being executed. Down here, she was invisible. And maybe she thought that was exactly what she deserved. The first day stretched into an eternity of mindless paper shuffling. Elena worked through lunch, not because she was dedicated, but because she couldn't face the cafeteria. The thought of eating surrounded by able-bodied soldiers, of navigating a food line with her crutches while people stared, it was too much. At 16:30, her computer chimed with an incoming email. She opened it and felt her heart stop. From Office of the Commanding General, JSOC, to CPT Elena Reyes. Subject: Immediate summons. Captain Reyes, you are hereby ordered to report to the Commanding General's office at 0800 tomorrow morning. Full dress uniform required. LTG Marcus Cole. Commanding. Elena read the message 3 times, trying to understand what it meant. Lieutenant General Marcus Cole, 3 stars, the Commanding General of Joint Special Operations Command, one of the most powerful military officers in the entire country. Why would he want to see her? The answer came to her like a cold wave. Crawford must have complained. Or Walsh. Or both. They wanted her gone faster than the paperwork allowed, and they had escalated. Tomorrow morning, a 3-star general was going to personally oversee her dismissal. Elena closed her laptop and reached for her crutches. Her hands were shaking. 3 months ago, she had led soldiers into combat. She had made life-and-death decisions under fire. She had been fearless. Now she was terrified of a meeting. As she made her way out of the basement and back through the lobby, Elena noticed Harrison watching her from the security desk. His expression was unreadable. "Have a good evening, Captain," he said. Elena nodded and kept walking. She didn't trust herself to speak. Outside, the November air had turned bitter cold. Elena stood on the steps of JSOC headquarters, looking up at the building that represented everything she had lost. Somewhere inside those walls, Walsh and his team were preparing for missions she would never lead. Somewhere real soldiers were doing real work while she shuffled papers in a basement closet. And tomorrow, a general was going to put the final nail in her coffin. Elena started the long, painful walk to her car. She had no idea that the meeting with General Cole would change everything. She had no idea that her crutches, the symbols of her broken body, would become the very thing that proved her worth. She had no idea that Derek Walsh would be in that room tomorrow. And she had no idea what the general was hiding beneath his uniform sleeve. Elena arrived at JSOC headquarters at 06:30 the next morning. She had barely slept, her mind racing with every possible scenario for the meeting with General Cole. None of them ended well. She wore her dress uniform, every ribbon perfectly aligned, every crease sharp enough to cut paper. If they were going to throw her out, she would leave looking like the soldier she still believed herself to be. The lobby was quiet this early. Harrison looked up from his desk and nodded as she passed. "You're here early, Captain." "Couldn't sleep." Harrison's expression softened. "Whatever happens up there today, remember who you are. Remember what you've done." Elena paused. "You know something." "I know a lot of things." Harrison returned his attention to his computer. "Good luck, Captain." She wanted to press him, but the clock was ticking. Elena made her way to the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The ride up felt endless. When the doors opened, she found herself in a reception area that screamed power and authority. Thick carpet, wood-paneled walls covered with photographs of special operations history. A young sergeant sat behind a polished desk, his uniform immaculate. "Captain Reyes." "Yes." "The general is expecting you. However, you'll need to wait. There are others attending this meeting." "Others?" Elena's stomach tightened. "Who else is attending?" Before the sergeant could answer, the elevator chimed behind her. Elena turned and felt her blood freeze. Derek Walsh stepped out, followed by 4 members of his Delta team. They wore dress uniforms identical to hers, their faces registering surprise and then contempt when they saw her. "What the hell is she doing here?" Walsh's voice was loud enough to echo. The sergeant stood. "Master Sergeant Walsh, please lower your voice. You're in the commanding general's reception area." Walsh ignored him, his attention fixed on Elena. "This is a Delta briefing. She doesn't belong here." "The general requested her presence specifically," the sergeant replied coolly. "Please take a seat, all of you." Walsh's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. He moved to the opposite side of the waiting area, putting as much distance between himself and Elena as possible. His teammates followed their hostility, radiating like heat. Elena remained standing, her crutches supporting her weight. She would not sit down like a patient waiting for bad news. She would face whatever came on her feet. The minutes crawled by. Walsh muttered something to the operator beside him, and suppressed laughter rippled through the group. Elena caught the words circus and cripple, but kept her expression neutral. She had survived worse. She had survived Syria. At exactly 0800, the inner door opened. "The general will see you now," the sergeant announced. "All of you." Elena moved first, not wanting to struggle through the door behind Walsh's team. Her crutches clicked against the hardwood floor as she entered the conference room. It was smaller than she expected. A long table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. The walls held maps and operational photographs. At the far end of the table sat a silver-haired man in his late 50s, his uniform bearing 3 stars on each shoulder. Lieutenant General Marcus Cole. His presence commanded immediate attention. There was something in the way he held himself, a coiled energy that spoke of decades in combat leadership. His eyes were sharp, assessing missing nothing. Elena noticed something else. The general rose to greet them, but his movement was careful, deliberate, as if he was managing pain or limitation that he didn't want others to see. "Seats, everyone," Cole said. His voice was calm, but carried absolute authority. Walsh and his team filed in and took positions on one side of the table. Elena moved to the opposite side, her crutches scraping against a chair leg as she lowered herself into position. Walsh snorted quietly. One of his teammates covered a laugh with a cough. General Cole's eyes tracked to them, then back to Elena. His expression revealed nothing. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Before we discuss operational matters, I need to address something that came to my attention yesterday." Elena's pulse quickened. Cole opened a folder in front of him. "It has been reported to me that there was an incident in the lobby yesterday morning. An incident involving unprofessional conduct directed at a fellow officer." Walsh shifted in his chair. "Master Sergeant Walsh." Cole's voice hardened. "Would you care to explain what happened?" Walsh straightened his face, carefully blank. "Sir, I'm not sure what you're referring to." "Then let me refresh your memory." Cole closed the folder. "Multiple witnesses observed you and your team publicly mocking Captain Reyes regarding her physical condition. You accused her of being responsible for the deaths of her team members. You suggested she doesn't belong in uniform." The room went silent. Walsh's jaw worked. "Sir, with respect, my brother died under her command. I have a right to—" "You have a right to grieve," Cole interrupted. "You have a right to question tactical decisions through proper channels. You do not have a right to publicly humiliate a fellow soldier who has served this country with distinction. Distinction? Walsh couldn't contain himself. She got 3 men killed. Did she? Cole's voice dropped, becoming somehow more dangerous in its quietness. Tell me, Master Sergeant, have you read the classified after-action report from that mission? Walsh hesitated. I've read the summary. The summary? Cole nodded slowly. Then you know approximately 10% of what actually happened. You know what they cleared for general distribution. You don't know the full truth. I know my brother is dead. Yes, he is. Cole's expression softened for just a moment. And I'm sorry for your loss. Daniel Walsh was an exceptional soldier. But before you assign blame, you need to understand what really happened in that village. Elena's hands gripped her crutches. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected anyone to defend her, much less a 3-star general. Cole stood and walked around the table. His gait was measured, careful. Elena noticed again that something was off about his movement, but she couldn't identify what. Captain Reyes, tell them about the intelligence you received before the mission. Elena swallowed hard. Sir, that information is classified. I'm declassifying it for this room. Tell them. She took a breath. We received intelligence from a local partner force identifying the location of an IED manufacturing cell. The source had been vetted for 18 months. He had provided accurate information on 6 previous operations. There was no reason to doubt him. And what happened when you arrived at the target location? It was an ambush. Elena's voice tightened. They knew exactly where we would be and when we would be there. They had pre-positioned IEDs along our exfil routes. They had fighters in elevated positions with clear sight lines. Walsh leaned forward. So you walked your team into a trap. She walked her team into a trap that was set by a traitor, Cole corrected. A traitor within our own intelligence network. The source who provided that information had been turned by ISIS 3 months earlier. Every piece of intelligence he gave us during that period was designed to lure American teams into kill zones. The room went still. Walsh's face drained of color. What? Your brother's team wasn't killed by Captain Reyes's failure, Cole continued. They were killed by a compromised intelligence asset that no one in the chain of command had identified. The failure was systemic. It was institutional. And Captain Reyes has been carrying the blame for something that was never her fault. Elena felt tears threatening, but forced them back. She had spent 3 months believing Walsh's accusations were true. She had spent 3 months hating herself for surviving. There's more, Cole said. He picked up a file and laid it open on the table. When the ambush began, Captain Reyes's team took immediate casualties. 2 men were killed outright. 3 were wounded, including Captain Reyes herself. She had shrapnel in her leg and a concussion from the initial blast. He paused, letting that sink in. Despite her injuries, Captain Reyes organized the survivors. She provided cover fire while treating the wounded. She carried Sergeant First Class Martinez 200 meters to a covered position while under continuous enemy fire. Walsh's teammate Martinez straightened. That's my cousin, Eduardo Martinez. He's alive today because of Captain Reyes, Cole confirmed. She went back for the others. She made 3 trips under fire, each time exposing herself to enemy weapons. On the 3rd trip, a secondary IED detonated. Danny pushed her out of the blast zone, Walsh said quietly. His voice had lost its edge. Yes, he did. Your brother saved her life. But he didn't do it because she was weak, or because she had failed. He did it because he knew she was the only chance the rest of the team had for survival. He made a tactical decision to protect his commander so she could believe the others. Walsh stared at the table. His hands were shaking. Captain Reyes completed the evacuation despite a shattered leg and significant blood loss. She personally carried Sergeant Rodriguez, who weighed 220 pounds, to the extraction point. She maintained radio contact with air support, directed the medevac, and refused treatment until every other wounded soldier had been loaded onto the helicopter. Cole closed the file. For her actions that day, Captain Reyes was awarded the Silver Star with Valor Device. She is one of 12 women in Army history to receive that decoration. She also received the Bronze Star for her previous service and a Purple Heart for wounds sustained in combat. The silence in the room was absolute. Walsh looked up, his eyes meeting Elena's for the first time without hatred. Something had shifted in his expression. Not acceptance, not yet, but the beginning of doubt about everything he had believed. "Why wasn't I told any of this?" he asked. "Because the investigation into the intelligence failure is ongoing," Cole replied. "Because we still haven't identified everyone involved in the compromise. Because there are people in this building who don't want the truth to come out." He returned to his position at the head of the table, his careful gait more pronounced now. "Which brings me to the real reason I called this meeting." Cole reached for his uniform jacket, which he had draped over his chair. With deliberate movements, he removed his right cufflink and began rolling up his sleeve. Elena watched confused as the fabric revealed not skin, but something else entirely. Metal. Carbon fiber. Precision engineering. A prosthetic arm extending from just below his elbow. The Delta operators stared in stunned silence. "Mogadishu, 1993, Cole said calmly, continuing to roll the sleeve until the entire prosthetic was visible. "An RPG hit our position during the Battle of Black Hawk Down. I lost my arm and two of my closest friends in the same moment." He flexed the mechanical hand, the fingers moving with surprising fluidity. "The doctors told me my career was over. My commanding officer suggested I take medical retirement. My own wife wondered if I would ever be the same man she married." Mr. Cole looked directly at Walsh. "I had every reason to give up, every excuse to fade into civilian life and let someone else fight the wars. Instead, I learned to adapt. I learned to lead differently. I learned that my value as a soldier was never in my arm. It was in my mind, my experience, my ability to make decisions under pressure." He rolled his sleeve back down and refastened his cufflink. "I went on to command 3 major operations after my injury. I led a carrier strike group. I earned these 3 stars, and I did it all with one arm, while people like you," he looked at each Delta operator in turn, questioned whether I belonged in uniform. Walsh's face was ashen. "Sir, I had no idea." "No, you didn't. Because you never asked. You saw Captain Reyes's crutches and you assumed you knew everything about her worth as a soldier, just like people saw my prosthetic and assumed they knew everything about my capability as a commander." Cole sat back down, his prosthetic hand resting on the table in full view. "I brought you all here because I need the best, and despite what you believe, that includes Captain Reyes. In fact, it especially includes Captain Reyes." Elena's heart was pounding. "Sir," Cole smiled for the first time. "Captain, I'm offering you command of a new Joint Intelligence Fusion Cell. You'll provide real-time intelligence support to Delta teams during operations. You'll be in the Tactical Operations Center making decisions that will determine whether soldiers live or die." Elena couldn't speak. "This isn't charity," Cole continued. "This isn't political correctness. This is me recognizing exceptional talent and putting it where it can do the most good. Your analytical skills are among the best I've ever seen. Your combat experience gives you perspective that desk analysts will never have. And your determination to continue serving despite your injuries tells me you have exactly the kind of resilience this job requires." He turned to Walsh. "Master Sergeant, your team will be the first to work with Captain Reyes's unit. I expect full cooperation and professionalism. Is that understood?" Walsh was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Understood, sir." "Good." Cole stood signaling the end of the meeting. Captain Reyes, report to the Intelligence Fusion Center at 0800 tomorrow. Your new team will be waiting. Elena rose, her crutches steady beneath her. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't. As the others filed out, Cole called her back. Captain, one more thing. Elena turned. The mole who compromised your mission in Syria, we believe they're still active, still feeding information to the enemy, and I have reason to believe they're connected to our current operation in Yemen. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. Walsh's team is deploying in 72 hours, Cole continued. If I'm right, they're walking into another ambush. I need someone I can trust to find the traitor before that happens. He met her eyes, and she saw something there that surprised her. Not just confidence in her abilities, but desperation. Fear. Can you do that, Captain? Elena straightened, feeling something shift inside her. Purpose. Determination. The soldier she thought had died in Syria was still there, still fighting. Yes, sir. I can do that. Cole nodded slowly. Then you have 72 hours to save their lives, including the life of the man who blamed you for his brother's death. The weight of that responsibility settled onto Elena's shoulders. Somewhere in this building was a traitor. In 3 days, Walsh and his team would deploy into danger. And she was the only one who could stop another massacre. Her crutches clicked against the floor as she walked toward the door. She had work to do. Elena didn't go home that night. She commandeered a workspace in the Intelligence Fusion Center and began pulling every file, every communication intercept, every satellite image related to the Yemen operation. Her new Team 3 analysts, who had been assigned to her without knowing anything about her background, watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Petty Officer Second Class Jennifer Park was the first to approach. 26 years old, sharp eyes, a reputation for catching details others missed. Ma'am, not to be rude, but who are you? Elena didn't look up from her screen. Captain Elena Reyes, your new commanding officer. I figured that part out. I mean, why are you here at midnight going through files like someone's life depends on it? Because someone's life does depend on it. Elena finally met Park's eyes. Multiple lives, and we have less than 72 hours to save them. Park pulled up a chair without being invited. Tell me what we're looking for. Elena hesitated. General Cole had classified the mole investigation at the highest level, but she couldn't find a traitor without help, and her instincts told her Park could be trusted. We're looking for a pattern, Elena said carefully. Someone inside our intelligence network has been feeding information to the enemy. They compromised a mission in Syria 3 months ago. I believe they're about to do the same thing in Yemen. Park's expression hardened. The Syria mission. I heard about that. 3 KIA, including a Sergeant Walsh. His brother is leading the Yemen operation. Jesus! Park leaned forward, her skepticism replaced by intensity. What do you need me to do? They worked through the night, cross-referencing communication logs, access records, and personnel files. By 0400, Elena's leg was screaming in pain, and her vision was blurring from fatigue, but she refused to stop. The pattern emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in darkness. Someone had accessed the Syria mission briefing files 17 times in the week before the operation. Someone had downloaded satellite imagery of the target location and the extraction routes. Someone had sent encrypted messages through a back channel that wasn't supposed to exist. I found something. Park's voice cut through Elena's exhaustion. Elena rolled her chair over, ignoring the protest from her injured leg. What is it? These access logs. Someone pulled the Yemen mission files 3 days ago. Same pattern as Syria. Multiple downloads of tactical information, extraction routes, timing details. Can you trace who made the access? Park's fingers flew across the keyboard. The access was made using a generic analyst credential. Could be anyone in the division. That's not good enough. Elena's frustration boiled over. We need a name. We need... Wait. Park held up a hand. The downloads were made at 0300, middle of the night, but there's a physical access log for the building. Only 12 people were in the intelligence division at that time. Elena grabbed a pen and paper. Names. All of them. Park read them off one by one. 11 names meant nothing to Elena. The 12th made her blood freeze. Specialist Robert Chen, the junior analyst who had been assigned to her team just yesterday. Where is Chen now? Park checked her computer. He clocked in 45 minutes ago. He should be in the main analysis room. Elena grabbed her crutches and moved faster than she had since her injury. The main analysis room was 3 corridors away. Elena's crutches beat a rapid rhythm against the floor, her heart pounding with each step. If Chen was the mole, if he suspected they were onto him, he might already be warning his handlers. She burst through the door. The room was empty, except for a young man hunched over a computer terminal, his back to the entrance. He spun around at the sound of her crutches, and Elena saw fear flash across his face before he masked it with confusion. Captain Reyes, can I help you with something? Elena studied him carefully. Mid-20s, clean cut. Nothing about him screamed traitor, but the best traitors never did. Specialist Chen, you were in the building at 0300 3 days ago. Why? Chen's eye twitched. Barely perceptible, but Elena caught it. I was working late on the Henderson analysis. You can check my work logs. I have checked your work logs. They show you submitted the Henderson analysis at 1900 the previous day. So, I'll ask again, why were you here at 0300? Chen's mask slipped, just for a moment. Then he recovered with a casual shrug. I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I come in and work when I can't sleep. It helps me relax. By accessing Yemen mission files. The silence stretched between them. Chen's hand moved toward his keyboard. Don't. Elena's voice cut like a knife. Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Elena moved closer, her crutches bringing her within arm's reach. I think you've been selling information to the enemy. I think you got 3 soldiers killed in Syria, including a man who died saving my life. And I think you're about to do it again in Yemen. Chen's face changed. The mask fell away completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. You can't prove any of that. Not yet, but I will. Chen lunged for his keyboard. Elena swung her crutch. The aluminum connected with his wrist with a satisfying crack. Chen screamed and grabbed his arm, giving Elena enough time to hit the emergency alert button on the wall. Within seconds, military police flooded the room. Get him out of here, Elena ordered, and lock down his terminal. I want a full forensic analysis of every file he's touched in the last 6 months. As they dragged Chen away, he twisted to look back at her. His expression was pure hatred. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. The Yemen operation is already compromised. Your precious Delta team is walking into a trap, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Elena's stomach dropped. When does the ambush happen? Chen laughed. Like I'd tell you. The MPs pulled him through the door, and he was gone. Elena turned to Park, who had followed her, and now stood in the doorway, pale-faced. How long until Walsh's team deploys? Park checked her watch. 18 hours. Get me everything on Chen's communications. Every message, every file transfer, every contact. I need to know exactly what information he passed and when. Yes, ma'am. Elena pulled out her phone and dialed General Cole's direct line. He answered on the first ring. Captain, tell me you have something. We found the mole. Specialist Robert Chen. MPs have him in custody. But sir, he said the Yemen operation is already compromised. Walsh's team is walking into an ambush. Cole was silent for a long moment. Can we abort the mission? I don't think so. If we abort, whoever Chen was working with will know we're on to them. They'll go dark and we'll lose any chance of catching the rest of the network. Then what do you suggest? Elena took a breath. We let the mission proceed, but we modify the plan. Chen doesn't know I'm involved. He thinks I'm still a broken soldier shuffling papers in the basement. Whatever information he passed to the enemy is based on the original mission parameters. If we change those parameters without alerting anyone who might be watching, we can turn their ambush into our ambush. Cole was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight of command decision. You're talking about using Walsh's team as bait. I'm talking about giving them a fighting chance instead of sending them to slaughter. And if you're wrong, if Chen passed information after the changes are made. Elena gripped her crutch until her knuckles turned white. Then I'll have gotten more soldiers killed, and this time it really will be my fault. The line was silent for what felt like an eternity. Do it, Cole said finally. You have operational authority. Whatever you need, you get. But Captain, bring them home. Yes, sir. Elena ended the call and turned to Park. Get me Senior Chief Williams on a secure line, and wake up the rest of the team. Nobody sleeps until Walsh's team is on that helicopter heading to Yemen. The next 12 hours were the longest of Elena's life. She worked with Williams to modify every aspect of the mission plan. New insertion points, new extraction routes, new timing that would put Walsh's team in position before the enemy expected them, instead of after. Williams was skeptical at first. With all due respect, Captain, you're asking us to throw out a plan we've been rehearsing for 2 weeks and replace it with something you came up with overnight. I'm asking you to trust me, Elena replied. I know my reputation. I know what people say about Syria, but I'm telling you, if you follow the original plan, your men are going to die. Williams studied her face for a long moment. Cole trusts you. Yes. And you trust your intelligence. Elena thought about Chen's face as the MPs dragged him away. The hatred, the certainty that he had already won. I trust it with my life. Williams nodded slowly. Then we do it your way. But Captain, if this goes wrong, I'll take full responsibility. Your men followed orders. The failure will be mine alone. Something shifted in Williams's expression. Respect, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. I'll brief the team. We deploy in 6 hours. The Tactical Operations Center was chaos. Screens displayed real-time satellite feeds, communication intercepts, and troop movement data from half a dozen sources. Elena sat at the central console, her crutches propped against her chair, her eyes scanning the information flowing across multiple monitors. Walsh's team had inserted into Yemen 2 hours ago. So far, everything was proceeding according to the modified plan. But Elena knew the real test was coming. Neptune 1. This is Overwatch. Radio check. Walsh's voice crackled through the speakers. Overwatch Neptune 1. Read you 5 by 5. We're approaching the secondary insertion point now. Elena leaned into her microphone. Neptune 1, be advised. We're tracking unusual radio traffic from the northeast quadrant. Possible enemy movement. Copy Overwatch. We'll adjust our approach. Park looked up from her terminal. Ma'am, I'm seeing something strange. Elena rolled her chair over. What is it? The enemy communications. They're not matching the pattern we expected. It's like they're confused. Elena felt a spark of hope. They were expecting Walsh to come in from the west following the original plan. They're repositioning to find him. Which means the ambush is in the wrong place. Elena allowed herself a small smile. We bought them time. Now we need to make sure they use it. She keyed her microphone. Neptune 1 Overwatch. You have a clear path to the target building. Enemy forces are concentrated 1 click west of your current position. Recommend you proceed with all speed. Copy Overwatch. Moving now. The next 30 minutes were agony. Elena watched the satellite feed as Walsh's team approached the target building. She tracked enemy radio communications as they grew increasingly frantic, searching for an American team that wasn't where they expected. She coordinated with air support and extraction assets, ensuring everything was in position. And then Walsh's voice came through, tight with tension. "Overwatch Neptune 1. We have eyes on target. Preparing for breach." "Copy Neptune 1. You are clear to engage." The satellite feed showed muzzle flashes. Elena's heart pounded as she waited, counting the seconds. "Target secured. I say again, target secured. 3 enemy KIA, 2 in custody. No friendly casualties." The operations center erupted in cheers. Elena slumped in her chair, the tension draining from her body. They had done it. Walsh's team had completed their mission without walking into the ambush that should have killed them all. But it wasn't over yet. Neptune 1 Overwatch. Be advised, we're tracking enemy reinforcements approaching from the north. Estimate 20+ hostiles, ETA 10 minutes. Walsh's response was immediate. Copy Overwatch. We're moving to Extraction Point Alpha. Negative Neptune 1. Extraction Point Alpha is compromised. Enemy forces have pre-positioned along that route. Then where the hell do we go? Elena's mind raced through the intelligence she had gathered over the past 18 hours. There had to be another way out. There had to be Neptune 1 head southeast. There's a dry riverbed approximately 500 meters from your current position. Intel shows no enemy presence in that sector. That's because it's a dead end, Walsh shot back. That riverbed runs into a cliff face. Trust me, Master Sergeant. Silence on the radio. Then, Overwatch if you're wrong about this. I'm not wrong. Move now. You have 8 minutes before those reinforcements reach your position. Elena held her breath as she watched the satellite feed. Walsh's team began moving southeast away from the safety of the original extraction route and toward what appeared to be a geographic trap. Park leaned over. Ma'am, are you sure about this? I found something in Chen's files, a smuggler's route that the locals use to move contraband through the mountains. It's not on any military map, but the satellite imagery shows foot traffic patterns consistent with regular use. And if the imagery is wrong? Elena didn't answer. She couldn't answer. Because if she was wrong, she had just sent Walsh's team to their deaths. The minutes stretched like hours. Walsh's team reached the riverbed. On the satellite feed, Elena could see them spreading out, searching for the path she had promised them. Overwatch Neptune 1. We're at the riverbed. I don't see any weight. There's something here. A crack in the cliff face. Looks like it might go through. That's your exit. Move through quickly. Extraction helicopter will meet you on the other side. Copy Overwatch. Moving through now. Elena watched as the team disappeared into the gap in the rock face. On another screen, she tracked the approaching enemy reinforcements. They were closing fast, less than 3 minutes from the riverbed. The satellite feed couldn't penetrate the cliff. Elena had no way of knowing if the team was making progress or if they had hit a dead end. The enemy forces reached the riverbed. They spread out, searching weapons ready. On the other side of the mountains, a helicopter waited at the alternate extraction point. Elena's crutches pressed against her chair. Her injured leg throbbed. Her hands shook. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." Static crackled through the speakers. Then Walsh's voice, clear and strong. Overwatch Neptune 1. We're through. We have visual on the extraction helicopter. Moving to the LZ now. Elena closed her eyes. Copy Neptune 1. Welcome home. Behind her, the operations center erupted in cheers again. Park grabbed her shoulder, grinning. Williams pumped his fist. But Elena couldn't celebrate. Not yet. Not until she heard the helicopter was in the air and heading back to friendly territory. 10 minutes later, Walsh's voice came through one final time. Overwatch Neptune 1. We are wheels up and heading home. Outstanding intelligence support tonight. Your analysis saved our lives. Elena keyed her microphone, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill down her cheeks. Copy Neptune 1. See you when you get back. She released the microphone and let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 18 hours. They were safe. Walsh and his team were coming home. And somewhere in a cell at JSOC headquarters, Robert Chen was going to answer for everything he had done. Park appeared at her elbow with a cup of coffee. Ma'am, you should get some rest. You've been awake for almost 40 hours. Elena took the coffee gratefully. Not yet. There's still work to do. What work? The mission is complete. The mole is in custody. Walsh's team is safe. Elena shook her head. Chen wasn't working alone. Someone recruited him, trained him, ran him as an asset. That person is still out there, and they're going to know their operation failed. They'll try again. She pulled herself up on her crutches, her body screaming for rest that she refused to give it. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Walsh's helicopter touched down at JSOC headquarters at 0347 hours. Elena was waiting on the tarmac, her crutches planted firmly against the concrete, her dress uniform replaced by rumpled fatigues she hadn't changed in 2 days. The team emerged one by one, exhausted but alive. Williams came first, nodding to Elena as he passed. Then Rodriguez Martinez and the others. Each man acknowledged her with varying degrees of respect, some with genuine gratitude, others still uncertain how to treat the woman they had mocked just days ago. Walsh was last. He stopped in front of Elena, his gear still strapped to his body, his face streaked with dust and sweat from the mission. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. You were right, Walsh finally said. About the ambush, about the extraction route, about all of it. I was just doing my job. Walsh shook his head. No, you were doing more than that. You were saving lives that a lot of people had written off, including mine. Elena didn't know how to respond. The man standing before her was nothing like the one who had humiliated her in the lobby. That man had been consumed by grief and rage. This one looked hollowed out, as if the mission had stripped away something he had been carrying for a long time. I owe you an apology, Walsh continued. What I said in the lobby, what I accused you of. I was wrong. About everything. You were grieving, I understand that. Grief doesn't excuse cruelty. Walsh's voice cracked. I blamed you for Danny's death because I needed someone to blame. I couldn't accept that he died because of something random, something outside anyone's control. It was easier to hate you than to hate the universe. Elena felt her own grief rising to the surface. Your brother was a hero. He pushed me out of that blast zone because he believed I could save the others. For 3 months, I wondered if he made the wrong choice, if I was worth saving. He didn't make the wrong choice. Walsh reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal object, a challenge coin worn smooth from years of handling. This was Danny's. He carried it on every mission since he joined the team. I've been carrying it since he died. He pressed the coin into Elena's palm. I want you to have it. Elena stared at the coin, feeling its weight. I can't accept this. It belongs to your family. You are family now. Walsh's voice was thick with emotion. Danny died protecting you. That makes you part of us whether you like it or not. And I think he would want you to have something to remember him by. Elena closed her fingers around the coin. The metal was warm from Walsh's hand, warm from years of being carried close to another soldier's heart. Thank you. Walsh nodded once, then turned and walked toward the debriefing room. At the door, he paused and looked back. Captain, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're on our side now. Then he was gone. Elena stood alone on the tarmac, holding Danny Walsh's challenge coin, feeling something shift inside her that had been broken for a very long time. The debriefing lasted 4 hours. Elena provided the intelligence summary, walking the team through every decision point, every piece of analysis that had contributed to the mission's success. General Cole sat at the head of the table, his prosthetic hand resting openly on the surface no longer hidden beneath his sleeve. When she finished, Cole addressed the room. What Captain Reyes accomplished in the past 72 hours is nothing short of extraordinary. She identified a mole that had been operating in our intelligence network for at least 6 months. She prevented an ambush that would have killed every member of this team, and she did it all while operating on no sleep and fighting through injuries that would have sidelined most soldiers. He stood and walked to where Elena sat. "Captain Reyes, please rise." Elena reached for her crutches, but Cole held up his hand. "Leave them." She hesitated, then pushed herself up from the chair, balancing on her good leg, her injured one taking just enough weight to keep her steady. Cole reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "For extraordinary service in identifying and neutralizing an enemy intelligence asset, and for intelligence analysis that directly prevented the loss of American lives, I am authorized to present you with the Legion of Merit." He opened the box to reveal a medal that Elena had never expected to receive. This decoration is typically reserved for senior officers with decades of service. You've earned it in less than a week. Cole pinned the medal to her uniform. The room erupted in applause. Genuine applause, not the polite acknowledgement she might have expected a week ago. Walsh was the first to stand, then Williams. Then the rest of the team, one by one rising to their feet in recognition of what she had accomplished. Elena felt tears threatening, but forced them back. She was still a soldier. Soldiers didn't cry in debriefing rooms. But later alone in her office, she let them fall. 2 days later, Elena received a summons to General Cole's office. She expected another briefing, another intelligence update. What she found was something entirely different. Cole was seated behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. A woman in civilian clothes sat across from him, mid-60s, silver hair, an air of authority that suggested she was accustomed to being in charge. "Captain Reyes," Cole said, "I'd like you to meet Dr. Margaret Chen. No relation to our former analyst," he added with a dry smile. Dr. Chen is the Director of Warrior Transition Programs for the Department of Defense. Elena shook the woman's hand, confused about why she was there, Doctor. Chen studied her with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Captain Reyes, I've been following your case with great interest. General Cole has shared your service record and your recent accomplishments. I'm impressed." "Thank you, ma'am." "I'm not here to compliment you," Dr. Chen continued. "I'm here to offer you something, a chance to help others who are facing what you faced." Elena glanced at Cole, who nodded for her to listen. "The military has thousands of wounded warriors who are being pushed toward medical retirement simply because their injuries prevent them from returning to their previous roles. Many of them have valuable skills and experience that we're throwing away. I want to change that." "How?" Dr. Chen leaned forward. "I'm establishing a new program called Adaptive Warriors. The goal is to train wounded veterans to serve in intelligence support and advisory roles for special operations units. We're looking for someone to design and lead the pilot program, someone who understands both the capabilities and the limitations of working with physical injuries, someone who has proven that disability doesn't mean inability." Elena's heart began to pound. "You're offering me a command position. I'm offering you a chance to redefine what service looks like for an entire generation of wounded soldiers. It won't be easy. You'll face skepticism, resistance, and bureaucratic obstacles at every turn. But if you succeed, you could change the lives of thousands of veterans who currently believe their careers are over." Elena thought about the basement office where she had been assigned. The storage room with the folding chair and the ancient computer. The assumption that she was dead weight, useless, waiting to be processed out. She thought about Walsh's mockery in the lobby. The laughter. The cruel imitation of her limp. She thought about how all of that had changed in less than a week. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." Dr. Chen smiled for the first time. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next 6 months were the hardest of Elena's life. She threw herself into designing the Adaptive Warriors program with the same intensity she had brought to intelligence analysis. She consulted with physical therapists, occupational specialists, and psychologists. She interviewed dozens of wounded veterans to understand their needs and capabilities. She fought bureaucratic battles that made combat seem simple by comparison. Walsh became an unexpected ally. He showed up at her office 3 weeks after the Yemen mission, still in his training gear, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I want to help," he said without preamble. Elena looked up from her paperwork. "Help with what?" "The program. Whatever you're building. I want to be part of it." "Why?" Walsh was silent for a long moment. "Because of Danny. Because he believed in people that others had given up on. Because I spent 3 months being exactly the kind of asshole that makes wounded soldiers feel worthless, and I need to do something to balance that out. It won't be easy. A lot of people in the special operations community share your former opinions about wounded veterans. Then I'll change their minds." Walsh's jaw tightened with determination. "One operator at a time if I have to." Elena studied him carefully. The man in front of her had transformed from her greatest enemy into something approaching a friend. She wasn't sure she trusted the change yet, but she needed allies, and Walsh's credibility in the Delta community was exactly what the program needed. "Okay," she said. "You're in." Walsh's contributions proved invaluable. He spoke at training sessions, sharing his own journey from prejudice to understanding. He challenged other operators who expressed skepticism about working with wounded personnel. He became the program's most vocal advocate within the special operations community. 6 months after the Yemen mission, the first class of Adaptive Warriors began their training. 20 wounded veterans assembled in a conference room at Fort Bragg. Amputees, burn survivors, soldiers with traumatic brain injuries. Each one had been told at some point that their military career was over. Elena stood before them, her crutches at her side, Danny Walsh's challenge coin in her pocket. "I know what you're thinking," she began. "You're wondering if this is real, or if it's another program designed to make the brass feel good about themselves while your careers quietly end. I'm here to tell you it's real, and I'm here to prove it." She gestured to her crutches. 18 months ago, I was leading reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. Then, an IED shattered my leg and killed 3 members of my team. I spent 3 months being treated like dead weight, shuffled into a basement office, ignored by my colleagues, mocked by the very soldiers I had trained to fight alongside. The veterans listened with the intensity of people who recognized their own story. Then a 3-star general showed me his prosthetic arm and reminded me that our value as soldiers isn't determined by our physical condition. It's determined by our skills, our experience, and our determination to keep serving. Elena met their eyes one by one. "I'm not here to give you charity. I'm not here because you deserve pity. I'm here because special operations needs what you have, resilience, perspective, and the kind of strength that only comes from facing death and choosing to keep fighting." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Some of you were infantry. Some were medics or engineers or linguists. Whatever your background, I'm going to teach you to turn your experience into intelligence that saves lives. You won't be kicking down doors anymore, but you'll be the reason the door kickers come home alive." A hand went up. Sergeant First Class Maria Torres, a double amputee who had lost both legs below the knee, to a landmine in Afghanistan. Ma'am, with respect, how do we know this isn't just a way station to retirement? How do we know they'll actually use us? Elena smiled. Because in 3 months you're going to support a live operation. And when that operation succeeds because of your intelligence, no one will be able to deny your value. The training was intense. Elena pushed her students harder than they had been pushed since their injuries, demanding excellence in intelligence analysis, communication protocols, and real-time decision-making. Some dropped out, most stayed. Torres emerged as a natural leader. Despite, or perhaps because of her injuries, she threw herself into every challenge with fierce determination. Her background in signals intelligence made her particularly valuable, and Elena began grooming her for a leadership role within the program. 3 months into training, the opportunity Elena had promised arrived. A hostage situation in Somalia. 3 American aid workers held by an al-Shabaab cell. Delta Force was tasked with the rescue, and Elena's team would provide intelligence support. The night before the operation, Torres came to Elena's office. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I fail? What if someone dies because I missed something?" Elena understood the fear. She had lived with it every day since Syria. "You won't fail," she said. "And even if you make a mistake, you'll learn from it. That's what soldiers do. We adapt. We overcome. And we never, ever give up." Torres nodded, but Elena could see the doubt still lingering in her eyes. "Maria, let me tell you something about the man who saved my life in Syria." Torres looked up, surprised by the personal tone. "His name was Daniel Walsh. He was a sergeant first class, just like you. When the ambush started and everything went to hell, he didn't hesitate. He pushed me out of the blast zone and took the explosion himself. He died so I could live." Elena pulled Danny's challenge coin from her pocket and held it up. "For months I wondered if he made the right choice. I wondered if I was worth saving. Then I realized that the only way to honor his sacrifice was to make sure it meant something. Every life I save, every soldier I bring home, every wounded warrior I help return to service, that's Danny's legacy. That's what his death bought." She pressed the coin into Torres's hand. "Tomorrow, you're going to help save 3 lives. And when you do, you'll understand what I mean. You'll understand that our injuries don't define our limits. They define our purpose." Torres stared at the coin, then closed her fingers around it. "I won't let you down, ma'am." "I know you won't." The operation launched at 200. Elena sat in the Tactical Operations Center, Torres at the terminal beside her. The Adaptive Warriors team monitored communications while Delta Force moved into position. Walsh's voice crackled through the speakers. "Overwatch Neptune 1. We're approaching the target compound. Requesting intel update." Torres leaned into her microphone, her voice steady despite the pressure. "Neptune 1 Overwatch. Thermal imaging shows 8 hostiles on the perimeter, 3 inside the main building. Hostages appear to be held in the northeast corner, 2nd floor." "Copy Overwatch. Any surprises we should know about?" Torres checked her screens. "Wait 1. I'm detecting unusual radio traffic from the western approach. Possible reinforcements staging approximately 1 kilometer out." Elena nodded approval. Torres had caught something that could have been fatal if missed. "Copy Overwatch. We'll adjust our exfil route. Good catch." The operation unfolded with precision. Delta breached the compound, neutralized the hostiles, and secured the hostages in under 4 minutes. Torres's warning about the reinforcements allowed them to exit through an alternate route before the enemy backup arrived. When Walsh's voice came through confirming all hostages recovered and all operators safe, the operations center erupted in celebration. Torres sat back in her chair, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, tears of overwhelming relief and vindication. Elena placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it." Torres looked up at her Danny's challenge coin still clutched in her hand. "We did it. All of us. 2 weeks later, General Cole presided over a ceremony recognizing the Adaptive Warriors team for their contribution to the Somalia operation. Torres received a commendation, as did 3 other members of Elena's first class. After the ceremony, Cole pulled Elena aside. "The program is being expanded," he said. "We're opening 3 new training sites and we need someone to oversee all of them. I'm recommending you for promotion to major." Elena felt the ground shift beneath her crutches. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep doing what you're doing." Cole smiled, the expression softening his usually stern features. "You've changed the way this institution thinks about wounded warriors. That's not something that happens often. Don't let it slip away." Elena thought about the journey that had brought her here. The humiliation in the lobby. The storage room office. The moment when a 3-star general rolled up his sleeve and showed her that disability didn't mean defeat. "I won't, sir. I promise." Cole nodded and walked away, leaving Elena standing in the reception hall, surrounded by wounded veterans who had once believed their service was over. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Walsh. "Drinks tonight, I think Danny would want us to celebrate." Elena smiled and typed her response. "I'll be there." She pocketed her phone and looked around at the faces of her students, soldiers who had found purpose again, who had discovered that their value extended far beyond their physical limitations. This was Danny Walsh's legacy. This was her legacy. And it was only the beginning. The phone call came at 03:47 on a Tuesday morning. Elena was asleep for the first time in 3 days, exhaustion finally winning the battle against her racing mind. The Adaptive Warriors program had expanded to 4 sites, and she was running herself ragged, trying to oversee all of them while managing active intelligence operations. She grabbed the phone without looking at the caller ID. "Reyes?" "Elena." Her father's voice rough with age and something else she couldn't identify. "It's your mother." Elena sat up, her heart already pounding. "What happened? The doctors found something. She didn't want to worry you, but—" His voice cracked. "It's cancer, mija. Stage 3. They're talking about surgery and chemotherapy, but—" Elena was already reaching for her crutches. "I'm coming home." "You don't have to. I'm coming home." She hung up and sat in the darkness, her hands shaking. Her mother, Carmen Reyes, who had served as a combat nurse in Vietnam, who had held Elena's hand through every surgery after Syria, who had never once suggested that her daughter should give up. Now it was Elena's turn to be strong. The flight to San Antonio was the longest 4 hours of her life. She arranged emergency leave through General Cole's office, delegating command of the Adaptive Warriors program to Torres, who had proven herself 10 times over in the months since Somalia. Walsh had insisted on driving her to the airport. "You don't have to do this," Elena told him as they pulled up to the departure terminal. "Yes, I do." Walsh's grip on the steering wheel was tight. "You've been there for every member of this team. Let someone be there for you. This is different. This is family. You are family." Walsh turned to look at her directly. "That's what you said to me. That's what Danny would have said. So stop arguing and let me help." Elena didn't have the energy to fight. She nodded and opened the car door. "Call me when you land," Walsh said. "And Elena, she's going to be okay. Women like your mother, they don't go down easy." Elena hoped he was right. The hospital smell hit her the moment she walked through the doors. Antiseptic and fear mixed with the artificial cheerfulness of nurses who had seen too much suffering. Elena made her way to room 412, her crutches echoing in the empty corridor. Her mother was sitting up in bed looking smaller than Elena remembered. Carmen Reyes had always seemed larger than life, a woman who had served in Da Nang during the Tet Offensive, who had raised 3 children while working double shifts, who had never backed down from anything. Now she looked fragile, breakable, human. Mija. Carmen's face lit up when she saw Elena. You didn't have to come all this way. Elena crossed the room and took her mother's hand. Of course I did. Your father is making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. The doctors are optimistic. They say if the surgery goes well. Mama. Elena squeezed her hand. Stop. You don't have to be strong for me right now. Let me be strong for you. Carmen's composure cracked. Just for a moment, but enough for Elena to see the fear underneath. I'm scared, Carmen admitted. I've been scared before in Vietnam when the rockets came, when the wounded kept coming and we ran out of blood and supplies. But this is different. This enemy is inside me and I can't fight it with my hands. Elena thought about her own battles. The IED in Syria. The months of rehabilitation. The mockery in the lobby. You fight it the same way you fight everything else, Elena said. One day at a time. One treatment at a time. And you let the people who love you carry some of the weight. Carmen studied her daughter's face. You've changed. Since your injury. Since that explosion. I was worried you would break. Instead, you became stronger. I learned from you. Carmen smiled, and for a moment she looked like herself again. Tell me about your program. Tell me about these wounded warriors you're teaching. Elena spent the next hour sharing stories from the Adaptive Warriors program. The successes, the setbacks, the moment when Torres led her first operation and proved that disability didn't mean inability. Carmen listened with the intensity she brought to everything, asking questions, offering advice, drawing strength from her daughter's accomplishments. When Elena finished, Carmen was quiet for a long moment. Daniel Walsh, she finally said. The young man who saved your life. You never told me about him. Elena felt the familiar weight of grief pressing against her chest. I wasn't ready to talk about it. And now? Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out Danny's challenge coin. She had carried it every day since Walsh gave it to her, a reminder of sacrifice and purpose. Now I understand why he did what he did. She placed the coin in her mother's palm. He believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. He made a choice in that moment, my life for his. And the only way I can honor that choice is to make my life mean something. Carmen turned the coin over, studying the worn edges, the faded insignia. This belongs to you now. Not just the coin's a responsibility. The legacy. I know. Good. Carmen pressed the coin back into Elena's hand. Then don't waste time sitting in this hospital room. I have doctors and nurses and your father to take care of me. You have soldiers who need you. Mama, I mean it, mija. Carmen's voice was firm, the strength returning despite her illness. I didn't raise you to sit by bedsides feeling helpless. I raised you to fight. So go fight. Win your battles and I'll win mine. We'll compare victories when this is over. Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to stay to hold her mother's hand through every treatment and surgery. But she recognized the steel in Carmen's eyes, the same steel that had gotten her through Vietnam, through decades of hard work, through everything life had thrown at her. I'll be back, Elena promised. Every chance I get. I know you will. Now go. Your soldiers are waiting. Elena kissed her mother's forehead and made her way to the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. I love you, Mama. I love you too, mija. Make me proud. I already have. She returned to Fort Bragg 48 hours later, exhausted and emotionally drained, but clear-headed for the first time in months. Torres met her at the airport with an update on operations and a cup of coffee that had gone cold during the wait. How's your mother? Fighting? Elena took the coffee anyway. Same as always. The program needs you back. We've got 3 new classes starting next week, and the Pentagon is talking about expanding to overseas sites. Overseas, Torres grinned. Germany first. Then Japan. They want adaptive warriors supporting operations across all theaters. Elena felt a spark of something she hadn't expected: pride. Real, genuine pride in what they had built. What about the current class? Any issues? Torres's expression sobered. There's one. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, no relation to the traitor. He's struggling. Combat medic lost his left hand to an IED in Afghanistan. Skills are incredible, but he can't get past the mental block. Keeps saying he's useless now. Elena knew that feeling intimately. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow morning, DO 700. Already on your calendar. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen was 32 years old, with haunted eyes and a prosthetic hand that he kept hidden under his sleeve. He sat across from Elena in her office, his posture rigid with the kind of tension that came from expecting rejection. "Tell me why you think you're useless," Elena said without preamble. Chen blinked, surprised by her directness. "Ma'am, you told Sergeant Torres you're useless. I want to know why you believe that." Chen's jaw tightened. "Because I can't do my job anymore. I was a combat medic. I saved lives in the field under fire with my hands. Now I can barely tie my own shoes." "Have you tried using your prosthetic for medical procedures? It's not the same. The sensation is wrong. The feedback is wrong. I can't feel what I'm doing, and in medicine feeling is everything." Elena nodded slowly. "You're right. You probably can't be a field medic anymore. Not the way you were. But is that the only way to save lives?" Chen looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there are 100 ways to save soldiers in combat, and only one of them involves holding a scalpel. What if I told you that your medical knowledge could prevent casualties before they happen? What if I told you that your experience treating wounded soldiers could help intelligence analysts understand injury patterns and predict enemy tactics?" "I don't understand." Elena pulled up a file on her computer. 2 months ago, we ran an operation in Nigeria. Hostage rescue. One of my analysts noticed something in the intelligence reports. The enemy was stockpiling medical supplies at a specific location. She flagged it as a potential casualty collection point, which told us where they expected to retreat after the initial assault. She turned the screen toward Chen. That analysis came from a former army nurse who lost her leg in Iraq. She couldn't provide direct patient care anymore, but her medical knowledge made her one of the most valuable analysts in the program. Chen stared at the screen, his expression shifting from skepticism to something like hope. "You want me to analyze intelligence. I want you to use what you know to keep soldiers alive. Different method, same mission. The question is whether you're willing to adapt." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, his hidden prosthetic hand emerging from his sleeve and resting on the desk. "What do I need to learn?" Elena smiled. "Everything. And you start today." The program continued to grow. Chen became one of Elena's best analysts, his medical expertise proving invaluable in predicting enemy movements and understanding casualty patterns. Torres earned her commission and took command of the overseas expansion. Walsh retired from Delta Force and joined the Adaptive Warriors staff full-time, using his credibility to recruit operators who had once shared his prejudices. Through it all, Elena maintained her connection with her mother. Weekly calls, monthly visits when operations allowed. Carmen's cancer went into remission after 6 months of treatment, and she celebrated by volunteering at a VA hospital, helping other veterans cope with their diagnoses. "Like mother, like daughter," she told Elena during one of their calls. "We Reyes women don't know how to stop fighting." 1 year after the incident in the lobby, Elena stood before a packed auditorium at the Pentagon. General Cole had arranged a presentation to defense leadership about the Adaptive Warriors program's success. The audience included generals, admirals, congressional representatives, and Pentagon officials. Every one of them watched as Elena made her way to the podium on crutches that no longer felt like symbols of weakness. "1 year ago," she began, "I was assigned to a basement office and told to wait for my medical retirement. I was considered dead weight, broken, useless." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, the Adaptive Warriors program has trained over 300 wounded veterans for intelligence and support roles. Our analysts have contributed to 47 successful operations across 3 continents. We have directly prevented the deaths of at least 62 American soldiers through our intelligence support." Murmurs rippled through the audience. But numbers don't tell the whole story. The real success is in the soldiers who thought their service was over, who now know they have purpose again. The real success is in changing an institution that measured worth by physical capability to one that measures it by contribution and commitment. Elena looked out at the faces before her, some skeptical, some curious, some genuinely moved. "I stand before you on crutches. Some of you might look at me and see limitation, but I see something else. I see proof that strength isn't about what body parts work correctly. Strength is about what you do with what you have. It's about refusing to accept defeat. It's about finding new ways to serve when the old ways are closed to you." She spotted Walsh in the back of the auditorium, standing against the wall in his dress uniform. He nodded to her, and she felt Danny's challenge coin pressing against her hip through the fabric of her pocket. "The soldiers in the Adaptive Warriors program are some of the finest I've ever served with, not despite their injuries because of them. They understand sacrifice in ways that uninjured soldiers never will. They have stared at their own mortality and chosen to keep fighting. That is the kind of warrior every commander should want on their team." Elena concluded her presentation to applause that surprised her with its enthusiasm. Afterward, she was mobbed by officers and officials asking questions, offering support, proposing expansions. General Cole found her after the crowd thinned. "Well done, Major," he smiled, using her new rank. "I think we can safely say the program has official support." "Thank you, sir, for everything. None of this would have happened without you." "I just opened the door. You walked through it." Cole glanced at her crutches. "Quite literally." Elena laughed a real laugh, something she hadn't done often enough lately. "What's next? That's up to you. The program is established. You could hand it off to Torres and move to something else. Or you could keep building." Elena didn't hesitate. "I keep building. There are thousands of wounded veterans out there who still think their service is over. I'm going to prove them wrong." 6 months later, Elena visited the memorial wall at Fort Bragg for the first time since Syria. The wall held the names of every special operations soldier killed in the line of duty, hundreds of names carved in granite representing lives given in service to their country. She found Daniel Walsh's name in the lower right section. Sergeant First Class Daniel James Walsh, the date of his death. Nothing else, no description of how he died, no mention of the choice he made in that final moment. Elena placed Danny's challenge coin at the base of the wall beneath his name. She had carried it for almost 2 years. Now, it was time to leave it where it belonged. "I understand now," she said quietly, though no one was there to hear. "Why you did what you did. You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You believed I had more to give even when I was broken and bleeding and ready to quit." She touched the granite, feeling the coldness of the stone. "I've tried to honor that belief. Every soldier I've trained, every operation we've supported, every life we've saved, that's your legacy as much as mine. You gave me a second chance, Danny. I've spent every day since trying to be worthy of it." Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn around. "I figured I'd find you here." Walsh's voice was soft, respectful of the moment. "I needed to say goodbye. Properly." Walsh moved to stand beside her, looking at his brother's name. "You know what's funny? When I first met you in that lobby, I thought I was defending Danny's memory by tearing you down. Took me a long time to realize I was dishonoring him. You've made up for it. I'm trying. Walsh was quiet for a moment. Danny would have loved the program. He was always talking about how the military wastes talent, how they throw away good soldiers because of injuries that don't matter. He sounds like a smart man. He was. Walsh's voice cracked slightly. He would have been proud of you, Elena. Hell, he is proud of you. Wherever he is. They stood together in silence, two soldiers bound by sacrifice and loss and the determination to keep fighting. Finally, Elena turned to face him. I have a new class starting Monday. 24 wounded veterans from 5 different branches. They're scared and angry and convinced their lives are over. Walsh smiled. And you're going to prove them wrong. We're going to prove them wrong, together. They walked away from the memorial wall side by side, Elena's crutches marking a steady rhythm against the pathway. Behind them, Danny's challenge coin caught the sunlight, a small circle of metal keeping watch over the name carved in stone. The next morning, Elena stood before her new class of adaptive warriors. 24 faces looked back at her. Amputees, burn survivors, soldiers with invisible wounds that hurt just as much as visible ones. Every one of them had been told at some point that their service was finished. They laughed at my crutches, Elena began. They called me broken, useless, dead weight. They said I didn't belong in uniform anymore. She paused, meeting their eyes one by one. They were wrong. About me. And about you. This program exists to prove that wounds don't end service, they transform it. You're not here because someone felt sorry for you. You're here because the military needs what you have. Experience? Resilience. The kind of strength that only comes from surviving the unsurvivable. She took a step forward, her crutches solid beneath her. In 6 months, you're going to support real operations. You're going to save lives. And everyone who ever doubted you will have to accept that they were wrong. That's not revenge, that's purpose. That's legacy. Elena straightened her shoulders, feeling the weight of command, of responsibility, of everything she had fought to become. Welcome to the Adaptive Warriors. Now let's get to work. Outside, the sun rose over Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across the training grounds where soldiers had prepared for war for generations. The memorial wall stood silent, names carved in granite, sacrifices honored in stone. And in a conference room full of wounded veterans, a new chapter was beginning, written not in blood and loss, but in resilience, purpose, and the unbreakable human spirit that refuses to accept defeat. The war didn't end for Captain Elena Reyes when that IED shattered her leg. It just changed how she fought. And in the end, that made all the difference.